How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here and welcome back to another video. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the refining processes. I've been chugging away with the trade skills in New World for a couple of weeks now, still absolutely having a blast, and the refining professions are proving to be quite fun, but there's also some complications. If you're like me and have come from another MMO like World of Warcraft, for example, you usually have lots of add-ons and lots of tools available to you to do a lot of the maths, I guess is the best way to describe it, to get some of the maths done for you so that you don't have to stress your brain in doing it. So I decided that if I'm going to get the remainder of my trade skills leveled up, I'm going to need to try and do it a little bit more efficiently. There are many players out there at the moment that are kind of concerned that the economy in New World is falling flat on its ass. I partly agree. The longevity of this economy is questionable at best, but what we can do right now is stay ahead of the curve and take advantage of it whilst the going is still good. So for the likes of the refining, the reason I'm trying to get them up to 200 is very simple. It's the daily cooldowns. Now, some of you may not even be aware that there are daily cooldowns with these, but if I take a look at woodworking, for example, I'm going to focus on mining for the purpose of this video, but I just want to show you woodworking for a second. Glittering ebony, which is unlocked at skill 200, is actually on a daily cooldown. Now, you can only craft a maximum of 10 of these every single day. When you craft the 10th, you don't have to craft all 10 in one go, but when you craft the 10th, it will trigger a 24-hour cooldown until you can press the craft button again. So getting your refining professions up, getting them maxed out at 200 and doing it relatively quickly will give you a big head start on these glittering ebonies. The other 200, what's it, like Phoenix Weave, I think is the one for, what's it called, for weaving. I'm still trying to get my head around all of the profession names. But getting ahead of the curve as such with these is going to really help you when these become a big thing. Now, of course, most people are not buying ironwood planks. Most people are not buying glittering ebony just yet. Why? Because people aren't 200. People aren't trying to push that 600 gear score very much. I think less than 5% of the player base has hit level 60. So it's not super imperative that you get this done straight away, but you should be working towards it, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually going as far as getting my trade skills. I've got the gatherings done and dusted, apart from fishing, because allow fishing. My gathering skills are there, they're done, they're ready. That means I can run around, I can gather basically anything in the world at this point. More importantly, I can get the legendary materials needed for the later refining. My woodworking is done, my weaving is done, and I'm working on smelting. But to cut to the chase, what I wanted to do is to show you my cheat sheet that I've put together. Some of you guys that are, have been following the channel for a longer period of time and have played World of Warcraft along with us may or may not know that I have a World of Warcraft gold making cheat sheet that has become relatively popular in Shadowlands, so I decided to put my hand towards doing something similar for New World. So let me introduce you to, let me bring it on screen here. Now hopefully we can make this look somewhat reasonable on the screen, but this is my New World cheat sheet. There are, so far, this is only so far, there are a few little sheets, little calculators that I've created that will give you guys a bit of a breakdown of what the cheapest way to do these refining is. Now I'm going to focus on smelting for today, simply because smelting is a little bit more involved, and it's a little bit more difficult to keep track of all of the numbers because we have one additional thing going on in the name of charcoal. Charcoal is a nice link between logging and smelting. And we've recently had some changes to the drop rates on the refining materials. So in smelting cases, we're looking at the sand flux, the shell dust flux, and the obsidian flux. Anybody that has managed to get to level 60 and is playing the endgame zones is probably going to be flooded with this higher end flux at the moment, and it's all coming down in price. But how does that work with, you know, the prices of things? So let me give you a quick 2-minute run through of this little calculator and try and explain to you exactly how it works. The first thing you're going to want to do is put whatever your current smelting skill is. I've got mine set to 184. I think if we go back into the game real quick, if I go over to the smelting, am I still 184? I am, yes, we are still 184. What you're then going to want to do is you want to fill out your shopping list. Now, one thing that I want to make really clear at the beginning of this is if you farm your own materials, that does not make them free. This is a mantra that is a long timing thing on this channel at least, and anybody that's tried to make gold in World of Warcraft will very quickly have come across the discussion of, well, are farmed materials free? No, they are not free. You have two options when you farm a material. You can either sell it as the raw material or you can do something with it. Regardless of which path you choose, that material has a value. Now, we don't, like what we do in World of Warcraft, have access to things like add-ons that keep track of market values. So we kind of have to, you know, play it a little bit by ear. Now, if you're doing this smart, you'll set some buy orders up in New World and you'll make it so that, you know, people supply you with the materials at a price that you define. But for the purpose of our shopping list, we probably want to try and gauge a rough market value. So what you're going to need to do is fill out your shopping list based by what's on your realm at the time. I would suggest being in either Windswood or Everfall when you do this. They're the two main big sort of trading hubs, and you'll likely find the materials are at their cheapest in those two zones. Plug in your shopping list stuff, make sure you put in the price of the fluxes as well, and then all you really have to do is choose which flux you're using. Now it will calculate all the proc chances and the crafting costs and the cost per items dependent on which flux that you're choosing. So if we see here, steel ingots, for example, has a crafting cost per item of 0.08. I've got some weird and wacky numbers in. We'll change these in a minute. But you can see if we change it to shell dust flux, it goes up to 10, and if we change it down to sand flux, it goes all the way up to 0.2. So you can easily just flick through these quickly and work out, well, which one is going to be the cheapest. It does all the maths behind the scenes. It takes into consideration the proc chances. And like I said, if you just want to craft one of an item, you can see what the single crafting cost is going to be. But of course, the proc chance and the multiplier that then becomes from that will actually mean that by the law of averages, if you were to craft multiple of these, what would be your cost per item? And this is what it uses to calculate the rest of the things going forward. Let's do a quick run through, a quick 2-minute run through then of exactly how I do this, as there are some interesting things that you, or some time-saving things that you can do. So when we're filling out the shopping list, let's drag that out the way for a minute. Let's head over to the trading post and I'll show you exactly how I look to do it. So firstly, I want to get the material prices. So we need the ore. So iron ore, if we search out the first one, we can see our iron ore. For me, let's take a rough market price based on something that we could buy in bulk, 7,500 at 0.43. So let's put this, oh dear, okay, 0.43. We want star metal. So now if we just click back instead of searching again, it will actually bring us straight to the list of ores, which is kind of convenient. So let's go star metal, a price that we can buy in reasonable amount at. We're looking at, well, there's some for 0.5, so we'll take that as our price for star metal. 0.5. Orichalcum, press back again, Orichalcum ore. Not a huge amount of it at the moment. This might be because I might have accidentally bought all of it not too long ago. But 0.28 is not, there's a good quantity there. 0.28 is already in. Cool. Let's do our fluxes. Flux. Let's go sand flux. At reasonable quantities, 0.1. Shell dust flux. If we once again search for the basic one and press back, we can easily find the shell dust flux off the list. This has got very, very cheap. This is a good indication to tell you that most people are in the mid game right now, as the mid tier fluxes tend to be the cheapest for this, for my realm at least. So let's go 0.03. 0.03 is already done. And then let's go back again, and obsidian flux. These are still relatively expensive, but as you'll see in a minute, just because these are expensive doesn't mean that we won't end up using them. 0.68, 2,500 of them, look. So let's put 0.68. Cheapest wood. This is an interesting one. This is for the purpose of making charcoal. The cheapest wood, you're going to have to kind of eyeball this a little bit yourself. I would suggest putting in a buy order for either weird wood or aged wood. These are ones that are basically going for 0.01 a lot of the time because people don't really have many uses for them. A little trick that some people didn't realize early days is you do not have to use green wood to make charcoal. Although it's the first and most entry level raw wood, it actually ends up being a lot more expensive a lot of the time than some of the higher tier stuff. For example, for me, I'm usually using weird wood to make my charcoal. It seems odd, but it doesn't matter. We're turning it into charcoal. We just need the cheapest. So let's go green wood. We've got to do a quick search on which ones are going to be the cheapest here. These you can just basically eyeball. You don't need to do too much with these. But green wood, 0.13. Aged wood, 0.13, the same again. Weird wood, 0.1. They're all about the same at the moment. It's only going to be the ironwood that appears to be more expensive. Yeah, so we can take a rough valuation of 0.13 for our cheapest wood cost if we were to buy it. So now with those in place, let's bring this back on screen properly. Now we can start playing around with the flux. So with these prices in place, we can say, right, well, if we're going to make steel and we're going to make it with sand flux, it's going to cost 4 gold 90 for a single craft. But based on the proc chances, and if you craft in bulk, you're going to pay 421 per item. What about, much cheaper if we use the shell and dust flux. You can see that because we get a big proc boost by using a higher tier flux, it actually means that if we craft in bulk, it will be 290 per, and eventually 286 if we use obsidian. So that's really interesting. You can see that the price between shell dust flux and obsidian is quite a step up in price, but in reality, for the purpose of crafting steel, there's really not much in it. Not much in it at all. Well, shell dust flux is much less of a cost for us initially, so we'll go by that one. Star metal, let's take a look at star metal. If we use the basic flux, it's 862, 818, much cheaper, and 717, so much cheaper to make star metal using obsidian flux. And I would imagine orichalcum is going to be cheapest by using... It is, yeah, it's cheapest to use the obsidian flux as well. So now you know which fluxes you're going to be using. You can work out what the absolute cheapest price to get your materials for. You just basically start buying the items and crafting the stuff. There is an override box on the side here. These overrides are for the odd occasion where you can actually buy the crafted item for less than what it costs you to make it. This might become a thing quite heavily when you're still leveling up. Once you reach 200 smelting skill though, or 200 woodworking or leatherworking, whatever it is, the proc rates are going to mean that you're able to craft things much cheaper than what they're probably selling for. But if we were to say be able to buy iron ingots for like 1 gold a piece, which is actually probable, ingots, let's go iron ingot. Okay, 1 gold 30. 1 gold 30 we can buy iron ingots for. Now, if we see, we're only crafting them at a 145 best case scenario. So we might want to put an override in of 1.3 there. If we use the override box, it will use this price that we've overridden it to calculate the rest of the stuff as well. So it'll update the rest of the prices for you accordingly. Now, if we went and looked at the price of steel, we could work out, well, is it cheaper for us to buy it, or is it cheaper for us to craft it? All about keeping the cost of your materials as small as possible. It means when you go and sell them back on the market, you make most profit and you can win. Using these little calculators, so far, as you can see in game, I've been able to level up stuff pretty effectively, and I've been able to, more importantly, do it without it costing me much gold. I've not made a lot of gold from these yet. The money making side of things comes when you've got this in place, when you've got your gathering in place, and when you start powering up through the crafting professions. When you start crafting those endgame items, that's where the gold is going to come. But for the moment, I'm trying to focus on just leveling things up. You're never going to make millions of gold whilst you're still leveling. You make all the gold once you've finished the leveling and you start just, you know, rinse, repeat, selling stuff. But I hope these little calculators are useful to you. The calculators, I probably should have said this a lot earlier on in the video. The calculators are linked in my Discord, the most up-to-date version of this. There's a very, very strong likelihood that there's a typo or something somewhere, or I'll add to this in the future. With that being said, I will keep the most up-to-date version available on the Discord. So jump into the Discord down below, get yourself a copy of this. Remember to save the copy locally. The publicly visible one you won't be able to edit. You'll need to go File, you'll need to go Make a Copy, download a copy of this to your own Google Drive, and then you can play around with it as much as you wish. But there we go. I'll leave it there for this, boys and girls. Spreadsheets are going to be a good way to make sure that you can really min-max your crafting and make sure that you're making as much gold as possible. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, leave me a comment down below on if there's any other videos of this style you would like to see. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. But boys and girls, have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.